1/3 of everything on your plate tonight was grown with help from an animal the size of a cashew, with 5 eyes, 2 stomachs, and a communication system so precise she can transmit the GPS coordinates of a flower patch to her coworkers using only her butt. I am not making this up. It is called the waggle dance. It works better than most corporate email chains. Here's the part that should bother you. Those coworkers have been dying faster than they can be replaced for about 20 years. Apis mellifera, the western honeybee, lives in colonies of up to 80,000 individuals, all female, organized with a precision that makes the Roman army look improvised. There's a queen whose entire career is laying eggs, there are workers who forage, build, nurse, guard, and produce honey, and there are a few hundred male drones who exist to mate and are evicted before winter because the colony does not do passengers, the drones do not have stingers, so their feelings about this are largely their own problem. The workers forage every day of their adult lives, visiting up to 100 flowers per trip. In her entire lifetime, a single worker bee produces about 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey. 1/12 she works until she dies. And what honey actually is, technically, is nectar that has been passed bee to bee, partially digested, dehydrated to below 18% moisture, and sealed in wax. I say this because you deserve to know what has been in your tea. And the waggle dance? A returning forager performs a figure 8 on the comb. The angle she runs relative to vertical tells her coworkers the direction to the flower patch. Using the sun as a compass reference, the duration of the waggle run tells them the distance. She is transmitting GPS coordinates using interpretive movement. I do not know how to improve on this. I also cannot do it. Here's what is actually happening. When a bee visits a flower, she is after nectar as she moves through the bloom. Pollen from the anther sticks to the branched hairs covering her entire body. She visits the next flower, pollen transfers, fertilization happens, flower becomes fruit, that is pollination, and pollination is what ecologists call a regulating service. Regulating services are one of 4 categories of ecosystem services. They are the things ecosystems do in the background to keep conditions livable. Climate regulation, flood defense, water purification, disease control, pest control, and pollination. They are invisible right up until they fail. The chain is honeybee, flower, fertilization, food. That is the regulating service. The honey, for the record, is provisioning a different category, the stuff ecosystems hand you directly. Both matter, but what makes the honeybee irreplaceable is not the honey. Managed honeybee pollination in the United States accounts for roughly $15 billion in crop value per year. Every single almond requires a bee. California grows 80% of the world's almonds, and every February around 2 million beehives are trucked to the Central Valley to make that possible. Apples, blueberries, avocados, cherries, cucumbers, squash, coffee, all of it dependent or heavily reliant on this one insect, which handles roughly 1/3 of global food production by volume. In 2006, American beekeepers started losing colonies at rates they could not explain. Hives were dying, workers were vanishing, colony collapse disorder. Losses ran between 30 and 50% per year for much of the next decade. You start winter with 100 hives, you end it with 60 or 70, and you spend spring trying to rebuild before almond season. The causes are documented: Varroa destructor mites, which attach to bee larvae, feed on fat bodies, suppress immune function, and vector multiple viruses. Neonicotinoid pesticides, the most widely used insecticides in the world, accumulate in pollen and nectar at sublethal doses that impair bee navigation, memory, and immune response. Bees that cannot reliably find their way home are bees that do not make it back. The EU banned outdoor use of 3 major neonicotinoids in 2018 based on EFSA assessments of unacceptable risk to bees. The EPA began its registration review of those same compounds in 2012 and concluded it in 2024. By that point, those chemicals had been in American fields for over 30 years. The science was not ambiguous. The regulatory calendar. I'm not saying the scientists at EPA did not care. I'm saying the review structure has inputs from chemical registrants, and those inputs were, for a long time, substantially better resourced than the inputs from beekeepers. The commercial beekeeper replacing 1/3 of her colonies each spring, working inside a system that needs her bees while also steadily degrading the conditions that sustain them. She is not the problem. She is inside it. The honeybee is the most studied, most managed, most economically important insect on Earth. We built a system entirely dependent on her pollination, using chemistry that impairs it, and we compensate by hauling millions of hives across the country each spring like she is a seasonal contractor we can just order more of. She is not a contractor, she is infrastructure. And we are running deferred maintenance on the only piece of infrastructure that makes 1/3 of your dinner possible. Thanks for watching. If you want to keep finding out what else is doing this kind of unpaid work, subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.